exploring both interstellar and interpersonal space-time continuums. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Teamwork makes the dream work, unless someone on your team decides they should be the star of the show. That's right. According to a new study, narcissism plays out badly in real group settings. Your ego can quietly sink your team if you're a narcissist. Let's discuss this with Dr. Claire Hart, who's worked on this research. She's a psychology professor at the University of Southampton. Claire, welcome to the show.
Hello there.
Can you describe grandiose narcissism to someone who's never heard the term before? I'm asking for a friend because it's definitely not me.
Well, grandiose narcissism is a personality trait. And it is a personality trait that we actually all have, but to various degrees. So it's like with other personality traits, it's basically it's normally distributed. So some people particularly low on this trait, some people particularly high, and most people in the middle. But it's a trait that's characterized by self-importance, a desire to stand out, a strong need for attention, and recognition. So yeah, it's quite a complex and it's like a multi-dimensional trait. So there are some good bits and there are some bad bits to it as well.
And we all have a little bit, like it's okay to want to stand out every now and again.
Exactly.
It's just if you do it every minute of every day and clobber over everyone that's the problem.
Exactly. And I mean, there are certain elements, say, that are adaptive. So, sometimes that sort of almost showy side, you have this confidence, charm, and it's benign. It doesn't necessarily have an impact on other people. And we call that admirative grandiose narcissism. But there's a rivalrous side, which is much more socially toxic. And the people who score high on that aspect of narcissism, they react really badly to criticism, for example. They want to compete with others. In teamwork settings, which is what we did, they might put their teammates down in order to protect their ego. So, it's a lot more aversive or maladaptive than the admirative narcissists.
Interesting. So if you're self-important, you want to stand out, you love attention, but you really act with sort of rivalry traits or really competitively.
That's right.
That's where it's a problem. Let's talk your study because I love it. You used escape rooms to evaluate all this. Yep. Walk me through the setup. Walk me through what it might be like if I was a participant in the study.
Okay, yeah. So we invited groups of strangers that we'd got through social media or like handed out leaflets on the street to come and take part in a jungle-themed escape room. And so we had over 100 participants come into the labs. We had them in small groups of about 4 to 5 people. I mean, what's great about escape rooms is like they're this perfect environment where, everyone's got to cooperate. They've got to make decisions under pressure. They've got to solve problems together. And so it was a really nice way to then see, what or how narcissists like impact this kind of environment. So they came in and all sat together and we gave them a 5-minute getting to know you task. And we used something called the closeness induction task, which is like a speed friending task where you self-disclose, you give information about yourself, because we know that self-disclosure usually sort of results in sort of liking, and liking leads to more self-disclosure. So we got them to do that. And then before and after entering the escape room, we got them to rate themselves on various different interpersonal traits and also rate everybody else in their group. So, like how supportive do you think this person is going to be? How cooperative do you think this person, do you think they're going to be a good leader? Are they aggressive? Are they arrogant? So some positive and negative traits. We then stuck them in the escape room, locked them in there for an hour. And then when they came out, we got them to do the same kind of assessments again. So rating their own personality and rating each other's personalities to see, basically whether or not your opinion of everybody changed in that time period that you were in the escape room together.
That's so interesting. What did you find? What did you find about people with certain personality traits and how they acted in the group setting, what the group thought of them before, after? I gotta know.
Well, what we found is that those ones that we just talked about as being sort of more socially toxic, they're a problem. So what we actually did in terms of rather than looking at individual narcissism levels, we looked at an aggregated team level narcissism so that it gave us an indicator of, if there were high levels of narcissism within that group. And we found that teams that were more sort of rivalrous, had that high levels of narcissistic rivalry, they didn't work together. They didn't work very well together as a group. So they tended to have much lower cohesion. So they didn't gel, they didn't trust each other, they didn't communicate very well. And it was that lack of glue that actually then had a knock-on impact, so that they actually solved fewer puzzles and they were less successful in the escape room itself. So most of their teams didn't actually pass. They didn't get unlocked at the end, for example.
So their teams didn't like them, and they also did worse if someone had these traits, these narcissistic, grandiose, with this rivalry flavor to it.
Yeah, but when we do look at the individual level, and we found that those people individually who scored higher on rivalry, they were actually perceived by their teammates as being more aggressive and as more lazy, even though they actually saw themselves as being pretty competent.
Aggressive and lazy. That's an
It's
odd combination. That does not sound like a recipe for someone great to work with.
But interestingly, those teams who score high in admirative narcissism, it didn't really have a negative impact as such on the team performance. So
interesting.
Yeah, so basically it's not a bad thing if the team in general has sort of that sort of more showy side, but not socially toxic side. It doesn't have the same negative impact on the group.
So if I'm going to be a narcissist, what's the best way to do it to have a great impact on your team? I feel like anyone listening who's really self-important, these kinds of things, they could get a few tips and function a lot better in teams if they just cut out this rivalry business.
Well, interestingly though, the opinion of the people who score high at an individual level on admirative narcissism, even though before they met, their charm and their confidence and their charisma sort of was judged positively. So they score high on, people basically said that they liked them and thought that they would probably make a good leader. But by the end of that 60-minute session, a lot of that positive shine had worn off. And instead, they were considered to be unempathic and arrogant. So it started off well, but it didn't necessarily end well. And that's something that usually, it does happen with narcissism, but usually over a much longer time period, that you think that they're great to start off with, but then you realize you're not getting anything back from them, or they're very, interested in themselves and not in you. And you eventually start to go off them. But we saw that this happened in a 60-minute time period when you're in an environment that really requires you to work together to be successful.
Based on what you found, maybe recommendations to managers or people at work or even in social situations trying to form groups, what does a healthy, high-performing team look like? How would you design the ideal team based on what you now know?
I think it's a team that fosters cooperation and, doesn't try to have people who are going to cause conflict in the group. So I think it's really important for managers to be aware of that personality balance of everybody in the team, because if you've got one or two really dominant voices, they can potentially drown out the sort of the quieter ones who are just getting on with things cooperatively. I think it's really important to encourage shared goals as well. So, reward collaboration, not just individual achievements, make it be important about the team. One of the other things that I think you could suggest is to rotate responsibility so that everybody gets a chance to lead at some point. And also to set, really clear norms very early. So make respect and openness part of a team culture. Make it that, that's what we should be aspiring to, because basically collaboration equals better performance.
In the escape room, did anything odd or silly or striking happen during your experiment that really, struck you, or did you not get too much visibility into what happened in the room?
Well, no, we did. We have recordings of everything. So we actually we watched them to make sure that there was no conflict, that nobody did kick off.
Did anyone, quote unquote, kick off, which I guess in North American English means have a fit?
Yeah, no, everybody was actually relatively well behaved. I mean, you could definitely see some dynamics happening, people getting annoyed with each other. But there was no fisticuffs.
Too bad. Well, too bad for this show, because we're looking for the drama. But the study's interesting. I really appreciate you coming on the show, Claire. Thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure.
Dr. Claire Hart is a psychology professor at the University of Southampton.